You know what that moment feels like. The moment when everything you built, everything you prayed for, everything you sacrificed goes silent. Not a slow fade, a sudden stop, like a door closing so hard the walls shake. And you're standing on the other side of it, hands still raised, mouth still forming the words of the prayer. You were sure he was going to answer. You know what it feels like to have worked for something with everything inside you. Not casually, not occasionally, with the kind of commitment that reshapes your entire life around one singular direction. You woke up early for it. You stayed up late for it. You gave up things other people never even had to consider giving up. You missed the parties, the vacations, the rest. You poured yourself into this thing the way a river pours into the sea, completely, without reservation, without holding back a single drop. And then God said, no, not maybe, not later, no. And now you're sitting in the wreckage of the thing you built your whole life around, and the silence in that room is heavier than anything you have ever carried, because this wasn't just a plan. This was your purpose. This was the thing you believed with everything in you that you were created for, and it is gone. This message is for you, not for the person who lost something they barely cared about, not for the person who prayed once and shrugged when the answer didn't come. This is for the one who bled for it, who fasted for it, who stood on the promises of God and declared with tears running down their face that they believed he was going to come through. This is for the one whose faith was not casual, it was a covenant. And now they're sitting in the dark, wondering if God was ever listening at all. I need you to stay with me, because what I'm about to say will not make the pain disappear. It will not explain away the confusion or the grief. But if you can hear it, really hear it, it will change the way you see everything that has happened to you. It will change the way you understand God's hand in your life. And it will change the way you walk forward from this moment, because the no you received was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of the one God had been writing all along. Let me paint the picture of who you are, because I think you need to hear it said out loud. You are not someone who stumbled into faith halfway through a crisis and decided to give God a try. You have been in this. You have been running this race with intentionality and fire since the very first time you felt the pull toward this dream, this calling, this thing that consumed you. You gave it everything. You restructured your whole existence around it. Maybe it was a career. Maybe it was a relationship. Maybe it was a ministry, a business, a healing you were believing for. Maybe it was a child you prayed for through years of waiting, or a marriage you fought for on your knees long after the other person had already left the room. Whatever it was yours, and it was real, and it was righteous. There was nothing wrong with wanting it. There was nothing faithless about pursuing it with everything you had. And you were close. That's the part that cuts the deepest, isn't it? You weren't far away when it fell apart. You could see it. You were 10 steps from the finish line, 10 months from the goal, 10 moments from the breakthrough. The paperwork was in order. The signs were pointing forward. Everyone around you could see it too. They were celebrating with you before the victory arrived, because it seemed so certain. And then the ground shifted, and in one moment, one phone call, one diagnosis, one conversation, one collision, the entire architecture of everything you had built came apart, and you watched it fall, and you could not stop it, and you have been trying to understand it ever since. Here is what I need you to hear. The proximity of the dream to the moment of its collapse is not a cruel coincidence. It is not evidence that God was playing games with you. It is not proof that your faith was misplaced or your prayers were wrong. The fact that you were so close before the no arrived is not what makes the story tragic. It is what makes the redirection so precise. Because God does not redirect casually. He does not turn you away from a path unless He is turning you towards something more essential. And He does not choose the moment of His no at random. He waits until you are close enough to the thing you wanted to see, with absolute clarity that what you wanted was not what He had chosen for you, not because your desire was wrong, but because His plan was greater. Think about the disciples walking away from Jerusalem with broken hearts. They had believed, they had followed, they had sacrificed everything to be near the one they thought would change the world, and then He was taken from them, and they walked that road in grief, saying to each other, "We had hoped," past tense, "we had hoped," as if hope itself had died with the dream. And then a stranger fell into step beside them and began to speak, and everything they thought they understood started to open up like a sealed room, finally finding its window. Their hearts burned within them, not because the loss was undone, but because the loss was revealed to be something else entirely. God did not take what you love because He didn't care. He took it because something was rising. But I'm not going to rush past the valley, because that is what most people do. They jump from the pain to the promise and skip the place in between where the real transformation happens. And I will not do that to you today. The valley is real, and it is dark, and it deserves to be spoken about honestly. There is a particular kind of grief that comes from losing something you believe God had given you. It is different from ordinary loss. When you lose something that was simply yours, a possession, a preference, a plan you made on your own, the grief is painful, but it is clean. You understand what happened. You mourn it and you move on. But when you lose something you carried in prayer, something you brought to God with open hands and genuine faith, something you believed He had confirmed and blessed and ordained, when that is taken, the grief has a different texture, because it is not just about the thing. It is about your understanding of who God is. And that is the valley that no one warns you about. The valley of theological confusion. The place where you're not just sad, you are disoriented. Where you find yourself in the quiet of 3 o'clock in the morning asking questions you never thought you would ask. Not out of rebellion, out of honest, raw, desperate need to understand. Why would you let me get this close? Why would you let me believe? Did I misread you? Did I mishear? Was I wrong about all of it? And beneath those questions, the one that is hardest to say out loud, are you even there? I want to tell you that it is not a sin to be in that valley. It is not a sign of weak faith. The Psalms were written from inside that valley. The same David who slew the giant also cried out in the night, asking God why He had forsaken him. The same prophet who called down fire from heaven also sat under a tree and told God He was done. The valley is not where faith ends. It is where faith gets refined. But the valley is also a dangerous place, not because God abandons you there. He never does. But because of what you are tempted to do while you are inside it. You are tempted to make permanent decisions based on a temporary position. You are tempted to redefine your entire understanding of God based on one chapter of a story that isn't finished yet. You are tempted to look at what you lost and decide that it represents the totality of what God has for you, when in reality, it represents only what He decided you didn't need. And the most dangerous temptation of all, to rebuild your life around protecting yourself from ever feeling this way again, to pull back from faith, to pray less passionately, to believe less completely, to hold your next dream at arm's length, so that if it falls, the fall won't be so far, to become gradually a smaller version of the person you were created to be, because smallness feels safer than devastation. God did not bring you through the valley to make you smaller. He brought you through it to make you unbreakable. There is something that happens in the human soul when it survives a loss it did not think it could survive. A kind of bedrock is discovered, a floor beneath the floor. You thought you were falling with nothing beneath you, and then your feet found solid ground that was always there, but that you never would have discovered if the fall hadn't happened. That ground is not made of circumstances. It is not made of outcomes. It is made of the unchanging character of a God whose love for you is not contingent on whether your dream survived. And that is the thing the valley teaches you that no mountaintop ever could. On the mountaintop, you love God for what He has given you. In the valley, you discover whether you love Him for who He is. And that distinction, that one distinction, is the difference between a faith that is a transaction and a faith that is a covenant. God was never interested in being your vending machine. He was always interested in being your father. And fathers don't give their children everything they ask for. They give them what they need. And sometimes what a child needs is not the thing they are crying for. Sometimes it is the refusal itself, the no said with love, that becomes the greatest gift they will ever receive. You could not understand that in the moment. You were not supposed to. No one can see clearly through tears, but you will understand it. Maybe not today, maybe not this season, but you will. And when you do, something will shift in you that cannot be shifted back. A permanent realignment, a reordering of what matters and what doesn't, a clarity about the nature of God and the nature of your own soul that could not have come any other way. And that clarity will become the foundation of everything you build from this point forward. A foundation that does not crack when circumstances change, because it was tested in the fire and it held. I want to tell you what was happening on God's side of that closed door while you were standing in front of it, devastated, believing it was over. He was already moving, not scrambling to make something out of a situation that surprised him. He is never surprised. He was executing a plan. He had always known, a plan that required this moment of redirection to reach the next chapter. He had prepared for you while you were grieving what you lost. He was crafting what you could not yet see. Not a consolation prize, not a lesser version of the thing you lost. Something that could not have existed for you if the first door had stayed open. Because the two were not compatible. The life you wanted and the life He had prepared for you could not occupy the same space. And He knew that, even when you didn't. Think about what is forged inside a human being by the experience of profound loss. Think about the specific qualities, the textures of character that can only be developed in the fire. Compassion, for example. Real compassion. Not the kind that says, I understand because it has read about suffering. But the kind that sits down next to someone in their worst moment and says, I know this place, I have been here, and I made it through. You cannot manufacture that kind of compassion. You cannot learn it from a book. It is earned in the valley, and it becomes a gift you carry for the rest of your life. A gift you can give to everyone who walks through a valley after you. Or consider humility, the kind of humility that is not performed but structural, built into the foundation of who you are. The person who has had everything stripped away and found that they are still standing, still breathing, still somehow held. That person does not build their identity on what they possess or what they achieve. They build it on something that cannot be taken, and that makes them free in a way that success never could. Or consider purpose, the kind of purpose that is not borrowed from a dream given to you by culture, by expectation, by the desire to prove something to someone who once doubted you. The kind of purpose that is discovered in the rubble, that emerges when everything external has been removed, and what remains is the irreducible core of who God made you to be. That is the purpose that sustains a life not a season, a life. These are not small things. These are not consolation prizes. These are the raw materials of a destiny that is larger than anything you had planned for yourself. And they could only be extracted this way, through this process, through this specific, painful, unavoidable refinement. And here is the thing about God's no that I need you to understand with everything in you. He never closes a door carelessly. He is not indifferent to what it costs you. He saw every sacrifice you made. He counted every prayer. He was present in every early morning, every late night, every moment you pushed through exhaustion and doubt and kept going because you believed. He saw all of it, and he did not dismiss it. He received it. Every ounce of dedication, every tear of faith, he received it as an offering. And he is using it in ways that you cannot yet see, but that are more real and more purposeful than anything you could have orchestrated on your own. The seed does not understand why it has to go into the ground. It does not understand the process of burial, the darkness, the compression, the apparent death of everything it was. But the ground is not a grave, it is a womb, and what rises from it carries everything the seed contained, and more, so much more. You are not buried. You are being planted, and I need you to receive the next thing I'm about to say as carefully as you have ever received anything. The reason God redirected you is not because you failed. It is not because you were unworthy. It is not because your faith was insufficient or your prayers were flawed. It is because He has a plan for your life that requires a version of you that the original path could not produce. The detour is not punishment, it is preparation. The loss is not rejection, it is redirection towards something that could only be reached this way. There are people waiting for you on the other side of your pain, people who need to hear exactly what you are learning right now, people who are in the middle of their own valley and cannot find the way out, and they will not need someone who has only known the mountaintop. They will need someone who has been where they are, someone who can look them in the eye, not with pity, not with platitudes, but with the quiet authority of someone who has been in the dark and found that God was faithful there too. You are being prepared to be that person, and that is not a small calling, that is a sacred one. So what do you do now? What do you do with the grief that is still real, the confusion that is not fully resolved, the scar tissue that has formed where the dream used to be? You do not pretend it didn't hurt. You do not paste a smile over a wound that hasn't healed and call it faith. Real faith does not require the pretense of painlessness. Real faith looks at the wound clearly, acknowledges the depth of it, the cost of it, the reality of it, and then says, "Even so, I trust you. Even so." Those two words are the heartbeat of a faith that has been tested, not despite what happened, not after ignoring what happened, but with full knowledge of what happened, with eyes wide open to the loss and the confusion and the grief. Even so, even with this door that didn't open, even with this dream that lies in pieces, even with this arm of my life that doesn't work the way I planned, even so, I trust you. And here is what happens when you choose that posture. You stop waiting for circumstances to change before you start living. You stop putting your life on hold until the plan you originally had finds a way to resurrect itself. You begin to move, sometimes slowly, sometimes with a limp, in the direction that is now open to you. And as you move, you discover something that will take your breath away. There is grace for this road. There is provision for this path. There is joy, a different kind of joy than you expected, a deeper and more durable joy, available on the other side of acceptance. Not acceptance in the sense of giving up, acceptance in the sense of releasing your grip on the outcome and opening your hands to receive whatever God has placed on this new road. There's a profound difference between surrendering to God and surrendering to defeat. One closes your hands, the other opens them. And when your hands are open, you are finally in a position to receive what He has been holding for you, what He has been protecting for you, waiting until you were ready, until the season was right, until the version of you that could carry it had been formed by the fire you walked through. You will find as you walk this new path that the very things you lost gave you access to things you could never have received any other way. The relationships that form in the aftermath of loss are deeper than the ones formed in the comfort of success. The understanding of grace that comes from having needed it absolutely, not just theologically, but personally, viscerally, in the middle of the night when there was nothing else to hold on to. That understanding becomes the ground of everything you say and everything you do. And it carries a weight that polished, unscathed words never could. My definition of commitment has always been this: staying true to what you said you would do, long after the mood in which you said it has passed, long after the excitement has faded, long after the cost became clearer than you expected. Staying true, not because it is easy, not because the path stayed smooth, but because the one you made the commitment to is worth it, and He has never, not once, been unfaithful to you. And one day, maybe not soon, but one day, you will look back at the moment the door closed, and you will understand it, not fully, not in the way that removes every mystery, but enough to be grateful, not for the pain itself. The pain was real, and you are allowed to acknowledge that it cost you something, but for what the pain produced, for the version of yourself that emerged from it, for the doors that only opened because that one closed, for the people you reached because you carried the experience of being broken and finding that God was still faithful in the breaking. And in that moment of understanding, you will say something that would have seemed impossible on the night the dream died. You will say, I would not change it, not because the loss wasn't real, but because what came from it is so much more than what was lost. That is not a platitude. That is the testimony of every soul who has ever walked through the fire and come out the other side. The fire was real, but so was the God who walked through it with them. We already know what to do. When God says yes, we already know how to respond when the prayer is answered, when the door opens, when the blessing arrives. We celebrate, we praise, we testify. But the question, the real question, the one that defines the depth of your faith is this: what will you do when God says no? What will you do when you have done everything right and the outcome is still not what you prayed for? What will you do when the dream dissolves and the path forward is unclear and the voice of God seems distant? What will you do when the thing you built your identity around is suddenly, irrevocably gone? Because depending on what you do in that moment, depending on whether you stay true to who you are and who He is, even in the dark, everything else will follow. Your healing follows it. Your purpose follows it. The lives of everyone who is watching you, and more people are watching you than you know, their faith follows it too. Your willingness to keep walking with God through the no may be the most powerful sermon anyone in your life will ever witness. Not because it is painless, but because it is real and it holds. So tonight, wherever you are, in the waiting room, in the empty house, in the quiet aftermath of a dream that didn't survive, I want you to lift your head, not because the pain is gone. It may not be gone tonight, not because all the answers have arrived. They may not come for a season, but because you are still here, you are still breathing, and the God who created you has not abandoned you in this valley. He is here. He has been here in every silent moment, in every sleepless night, in every question that felt too heavy to carry alone. He did not leave. He never leaves. And his plan for your life cannot be derailed by what you lost. It cannot be stopped by the door that closed. It cannot be limited by the dream that fell apart. Because his plan for you was never dependent on that one outcome. It was always larger than that. It always will be. Lift your head, open your hands, take one more step, and trust the God who says no. Because he is the same God who says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans that carry a future. Plans that carry a hope. Plans that were written before you drew your first breath, and that cannot be undone by the hardest chapter of your story. The night is real, but the morning is coming. And when it comes, you will discover that God was not absent in the dark. He was working in it, turning your tragedy into triumph, turning your deepest no into the most sacred yes your life has ever known. Glory to the God who holds our broken dreams and makes them whole, not always by restoring what was lost, but by revealing what was always meant to take its place. Glory to the one who meets us in the valley and walks us through it. Glory to the Father who loves us too much to give us less than what he designed us to carry. He was faithful before the loss. He was faithful inside it, and he will be faithful in everything that comes after. This is not the end of your story. This is where it truly begins. This video was inspired by real testimonies of faith under trial. Images and videos created with artificial intelligence were used for illustrative purposes, protecting the identities of those involved.